We haven't talked about it yet, but did you all hear about the El Paso airspace controversy? Well, apparently Kristi Noem didn't either, based on the substance of her answer here, where she gives kind of a flimsy answer and then abruptly ends, as the Mediaite headline read. The presser, Noem abruptly ends presser after being pressed on laser strike on party balloons. Now that's a lot to unpack. What the hell does that mean? That was actually my reaction. I was like, laser strike on party balloons. So I'm going to show you this clip. Then I'm going to show you Tom Homan to a different Kristi Noem moment. Even Tom Homan doesn't feel able.
I've noticed in the media
doesn't feel able to defend what Kristi Noem said on a different issue. But first, I found this really fascinating because let me give you a little bit of the context. It's kind of strange because there's a lot still that we don't know. But you probably heard in the news that the airspace above El Paso was closed, and it was going to be a 10-day closure, a type of shutdown of the airspace that we haven't seen since 9/11. So there was a lot of what's going on, huh? And then they said, the authorities came out. And as I'm telling you the story, just know behind the scenes, there's a bunch of finger pointing and chaos between the Pentagon, DHS, and then the FAA. And that comes from the authorities coming out and saying, sorry, we had to do that. And like Sean Duffy said this because there was Mexican cartel drones that we had to shoot down. And you go, okay. But then we learn it wasn't Mexican cartel drones. What actually happened was there's already been some strife about whether or not to use this new laser technology that can shoot at drones. It's like an anti-drone technology because the FAA is concerned if you willy-nilly without coordinating with us extensively start shooting around lasers, you could mess with planes, which makes sense. I could imagine that. And so this was one of those cases where there wasn't enough coordination, but all of a sudden they're about to use this laser, or they did use it against what they thought was a drone. So then the FAA closes the airspace, panicking, finger pointing, chaos. And then we learn it was actually just balloons. So whoopee, they took down some happy birthday balloons and caused all of that chaos through incompetence. Here's Kristi Noem getting asked about it and then ending her press conference.
The El Paso airspace closure confirmed that CBP actually hit a party balloon that thought was a drone with a laser early this week, as it was reported. And if that is true, why wasn't the action coordinated with the FAA?
You know, this was a joint agency task force mission that was undertaken.
A strict policy on balloons not floating in the sky.
And
just the quickest pause to request that you click the subscribe button, the simplest, easiest, freest way, completely free, to support the work that we do. Right below the video, click that subscribe button. Back to the video.
We're continuing to work on the communication through that, but recognize we're grateful for the partnership with the Department of War and the FAA as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Press.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. So, that doesn't, she didn't really answer the question. He said, is it true that without coordinating with the FAA, you sparked all of this by shooting at party balloons with a potentially unused before anti-drone laser that could pose risks to aircrafts? Is that actually what happened? She says this was a joint task force. Here's a little more reporting about it.
Is where it gets murky. Is whether this laser was on loan from the DoD, Department of Defense, to Customs and Border Protection officers, when it was deployed, where it was deployed, and this is what triggered the FAA to shut down the airspace. At first for 10 days, which is huge, but then abruptly lifted it when it's deemed that there was kind of like little or no threat at all. It apparently had been used a few days ago to take down suspected flying objects, which were later identified as party balloons. So that is where, when you talk about protocol, I'm not sure that has been defined, and it's one of the disagreements between U.S. military forces, Border Patrol, and the FAA that caused this shutdown in the first place.
Yeah, because real quick, Charlie, this was a big deal for them to order a ground stop. Last time the FAA ordered this kind of stop of all air traffic was during 9/11, right?
9/11, you know, you can't emphasize that enough, and this is how seriously the FAA has put it. And then also the reason that so many people at the White House, local politicians and national politicians said, well, wait a minute, you can't do that. You can't shut down that area. It's a very busy airport. It's an international airport.
Well, don't be just willy-nilly shooting around lasers then. Because that's, I think, the problem the FAA had with it was, no, you can't just... Did he say it was on loan to DHS? So, still a lot that we don't know, but it was a chaotic scene for sure, and Kristi Noem didn't give us much more insight with her answer there. Now, on Jake Tapper's show, someone who's supposed to be aligned with Kristi Noem, Tom Homan, the border czar, was asked about a different moment from Kristi Noem where she says, one of the most important jobs of DHS is to make sure that we, among other things, elect the right leaders. And it's like, no, that's not one of your jobs. What are you talking about? And Tom Homan's like, oh, I got one call. Is pretty much to say, I don't know, ask Christie.
DHS Secretary Noem made some comments that Democratic leader Schumer just commented on earlier in the show. I want to play them for you.
It may be one of the most important things that we need to make sure we trust is reliable, and that when it gets to election day that we've been proactive to make sure that we have the right people voting, electing the right leaders to lead this country.
Why is the DHS secretary saying that? That's not at all what you're supposed to be working on. The right leaders getting elected?
So what does she mean when she says electing the right leaders? That's not really immigration enforcement or DHS responsibility.
I don't know. That'd be a question for the secretary. if I had to guess, probably that only those legally eligible to vote would vote. But I have not talked to the secretary about those statements. That'd be something she'd have to answer.
Yeah. So even Tom goes, I don't know. If I had to guess, he feels this is bonkers. Quick little intermission. Then we're gonna get back to some of these Sunday shows. Speaking of ICE. Here's one ICE agent being filmed going, girl, you got loser written all over you.
This isn't a good look for you.
You think I care about my look?
No, trust me.
When you guys
it is evident by how you look, you don't care. We get that, trust me. No, that's all I'm saying. I'm just saying this, trying to be a social warrior. If you actually cared, you probably would care about the child who got raped and also the person who got murdered by the person that we were looking for. But see, you don't care.
No, I don't care because you guys try. You just try to detain legal.
Okay, aside from whatever the substances of this, come on, brother. When you're clashing with citizens, let's not do the whole, oh, I can tell you don't care about how you look. You got that written all over your, what is that? Eddie Bauer. Eddie Bauer, okay. Now, Jake Tapper's show, he also had Mark Wayne Mullin join him for a story that finally is getting more coverage. Insane, which is that the Trump administration tried to criminally charge Democratic lawmakers after Trump called for their execution for stating that military members should follow the law if orders conflict with the law. Don't follow illegal orders was the video. And they tried to bring a criminal case against these Democrats. Brazen authoritarianism. So if you think it's not brazen authoritarianism, let's see how a Republican senator tries to defend it.
Shattered norm after the Trump administration tried and failed to indict 6 Democratic lawmakers over a controversial video they made urging military service members to not obey illegal orders. Whether or not you approve of the video, the question is, do you really think those 6 lawmakers should have to go to prison for what they said? Joining us now, Republican Senator Mark Wayne Mullin of Oklahoma. Senator, always good to have you. So your fellow Republican senators were pretty outspoken about what the Trump administration tried to do. Murkowski called the attempted indictments chilling. Tillis called it political lawfare that needs to stop. Grassley said the Justice Department should focus on going after real lawbreakers. Wicker said the grand jury made the right decision. How do you feel about the Trump administration trying to send those 6 members of Congress?
The DOJ was sexting them, Jake? I'm gonna put you in prison. It's like, hey, Mark Kelly, I'm gonna put some fluffy handcuffs on you for that naughty video you posted. No,
After real lawbreakers, Wicker said the grand jury made the right decision. How do you feel about the Trump administration trying to send those 6 members of Congress, including 2 of your Senate colleagues, to prison?
Well, Jake, it's not the lane I walk in. I leave that to the DOJ. I'm not an attorney. Don't pretend to be an attorney. My branch of government is the legislative branch. What we have been focused on, and what I've been laser focused on, is DHS funding. Trying to get away from this Democrat shutdown with DHS. It's actually political theater. So, what's going on at the DOJ? If it's something I need to get involved in because it's a legislative requirement, then I'll get involved in it. Until then, I'll let them do their job.
I do have a tough time imagining, let's say, if the Biden administration had tried to prosecute Rand Paul for saying things about COVID that they didn't like. I have a tough time imagining you would say the same thing.
Well, I would say the same thing if I'm not familiar with the case law or if it's something that I need to do. Like I said, I'm not an attorney. I stay very focused on my lane. I tell people all the time, listen, I'm never going to ask you to do a job that I haven't done or I think I can do better. Being an attorney has never been something I want to do. And so, Jay.
What the hell does that even mean, Mark Wayne? I always tell people I'm never going to ask you to do a job that I haven't done or that I could do better. Okay, that is a statement that makes sense by itself, which is does it? How does it have to do with this? He just says random things. Like he just wants to keep talking, but he doesn't know what's going on in his brain. So then he just says random things.
Give me a joke.
You're telling me right now that you can't speak on brazen weaponization of the government because you're not an attorney, despite you constantly speaking about legal issues when you're not an attorney, when it has to do with Democrats taking actions you don't like. But in reference to that, you make the statement that you wouldn't tell someone to do a job you haven't done or you could do better. But you're right now saying other people are doing a job you haven't done and do better. I'm very confused. But then watch, guys, watch. Guys and gals, excuse me. He just said that he wouldn't speak on potential weaponization of the DOJ because he's not an attorney, and in the next breath talks about Biden weaponization of the DOJ.
I tell people all the time, listen, I'm never going to ask you to do a job that I haven't done or I think I can do better. Being an attorney has never been something I want to do. And so, Jake, I'm very serious when I say this. I'll let DOJ play out. What we don't want it to be done, what we don't want to happen is for the DOJ to be used for political leverage, which is what happened underneath the Biden administration, which is what happened when they went after Trump for year after year after year.
I thought you were an attorney. I thought you don't ask people to do jobs they haven't done and you can do better. What? Jake's asking you if you think that Trump is currently weaponizing the DOJ. You say you can't talk about that because you're not an attorney. And then you accuse the Biden administration of weaponizing the DOJ, which you, by your logic, you wouldn't be able to talk about, or you wouldn't be able to judge if it was weaponization because you're not an attorney. How on earth did he just do that and not notice?
And we're trying to change that. I know the Republicans and I know the president is focused on the rule of law, and that's what we are. We want to restore the faith to the American people, restore the...
Look at Jake's face. Jake's like, this bitch is just saying random shit. He's just saying random mumbo jumbo. How, as Jake asks, imagine if you would, if Biden tried to prosecute a sitting Republican politician for merely saying something Biden disagreed with on an issue. Imagine if a few Republican veterans got together and said, remember, service members, you shouldn't follow illegal orders. And then Biden tried to prosecute them. Let's make it very simple for Mark Wayne. Imagine that. Would you go, I don't know, I'm not an attorney and no, you would be outraged, as you should be, for such a political prosecution. I mean, what is he even doing on television? Why is he even getting booked for these things? He never comes off very thoughtful, we'll say. Well, a different Republican who's a little bit more willing to be honest on this saw it a different way. This is Christie.
a big story this week, and that was Mark Kelly and the others, a grand jury. Mark Kelly, they tried to get criminal charges against him and others for the video, a reminder, the video where they lawmakers reminded veterans or active duty military, rather, that they do not have to follow illegal orders. That was it. That was the video. And they don't have to follow illegal orders. What's your reaction to that? They tried to get the grand jury to indict. Grand juries almost always indict. They didn't this time.
Well, I want to put a couple things in perspective. Having done the job of U.S. Attorney for 7 years, in 7 years that I was U.S. Attorney in New Jersey, and we were the third most productive district out of 93 in the country during those 7 years. So we brought a lot of cases. We never once, not once in 7 years, were no-billed by a grand jury. Not once. So to try, people
overwhelming majority.
No,
because the prosecution just
unanimity. We never got no-billed, right? So why is that? This false idea that grand juries, you can indict a ham sandwich. It's not true. And the Trump administration is proving that. They're putting a bunch of ham sandwiches up there, and the grand juries are not indicting them. The fact is that the previous Justice Departments, before this one, took very seriously bringing charges to a grand jury and asking to indict a fellow American. And what you're seeing now is absolutely the destruction of the credibility of the Justice Department with our judicial system. Judges are not giving the benefit of the doubt anymore to assistant U.S. attorneys when they come into court, and worse yet, with the public. And so the damage that gets done here by this just pure vendetta prosecution is long-term and is going to be very, very difficult to fix.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And the fact that you have a single human person on this planet who ever complained about Trump being prosecuted when there were people who had nothing to do with the Biden administration bringing those cases. There were also DOJ officials that stayed very separate from Biden himself. And there was stacks and stacks of evidence. Still, people said the mere fact that Trump is a former president and Biden's political opponent essentially means he should be untouchable, no matter what he did. And if you ever said a little peep about that, and you don't see this as outrageous, given that all they would be trying to prosecute these lawmakers for is saying something that Trump didn't like to hear, which is true, which is already the law as it pertains to military service members, and then you're the most dishonest human. I don't even want ever to see you in my face. I never want to see you in my eyeballs, if that applies to you. And meanwhile, Don Lemon, I won't play this for you, but essentially you have CNN's legal analyst, Ellie Honig, analyzing Don Lemon's indictment and saying, this is going to go down in flames. This is going to fall apart for Trump's DOJ. This is so obviously a vindictive prosecution. There's no way they can build a case that reasonably argues Lemon broke the law with his actions at the church while covering that event. And that's just another, add it to the list. Comey, Letitia James, Don Lemon, Mark Kelly, all the lawmakers in that attempted indictment. I don't even know how you see this as a MAGA person and go, yeah, tight. That's how I picture a MAGA person watching. All right, tight.